All right. So
And
Aisha mentioned Muhammad Hijab trying to defend all this from an Islamic perspective. Check this out here. Now, this is a long post. Anyone jump in whenever you want to point anything out, or if it's too much, just say at some point that's enough or something like that. But let's go ahead and see Muhammad Hijab in action, because this is a man who wants to defend everything he does using and use his religion to do this. But Thaddeus, what are we reading here?
yeah, so this is a tweet by Muhammad Hijab shortly after the story had broke, and he was facing a lot of criticism, even from Muslims, about everything and the statements he'd made in the past. So he posts this in which he tries to clarify his position on secret marriages or marriages with the intention of divorce, or mut'ah, as Shia would call it, even though as Sunnis are like, oh, we don't do mut'ah, we don't do mut'ah. But he's like, all these things, right? These issues that are floating around, people are attacking for it. He's like, okay, I'm going to clarify my position. And he ends up contradicting some of the things that he said on the public record previously in his attempts to, clarify the situation, which he's not involved in any way, right? Because he's still maintaining that this is all uh, a complete made up attack on him, and he's pretending that he's not making any statements on it, that he's ignoring it, even though he's releasing videos on an anonymous channel.
All right, so let's see what we've got here. He says, on secret marriages. I guess I could do it in my hijab voice, but marriages with the intention of divorce and mut'ah, juridical clarification. This statement offers a clarification of certain conceptual positions within Islamic legal discourse, especially those that were recently discussed in an episode of The Bitter Truth. Following that appearance, several of my remarks were either misconstrued or reduced to personal opinion. What was presented was not a personal defense or prescriptive argument, but a descriptive account of legal perspectives grounded in the classical tradition. This clarification revisits those points with greater precision and attention to juristic structure. So, already sounds like people started using the clips to criticize him and then make fun of his position, and so he has to clarify.
Yeah, just one thing that I stood out to me there. He said, "This is not a personal, or it wasn't a personal defense when I went on Bitter Truth,"
Exactly.
because we all interpreted it, especially in light of the things coming out, as him finding justifications for his own behavior. But no, 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 no. He says it wasn't. That's not what he was doing.
He told on himself again.
Yes, I'm saying this for a
Yeah,
friend.
so he's
Go ahead.
so his post here, he's rectifying and correcting, like mainly the preachings that he was spreading. And this is one of the conditions that I did put forward to the board and the shuyukh I spoke to, and to himself. Like, you have to come out and rectify and correct on video, and you have to put down the videos that were misleading the youth from an Islamic perspective. So here he's claiming that he was like innocently just talking from like about jurisprudence and so on. No, his words in the past were extremely specific. They were collected. They were all building up an image of like a hit and run situation, like use and abuse situation, like the loopholes. They were crafted, they were carefully selected, and they created a monster, like a weapon to destroy the lives of women. They were very carefully selected, his preachings previously. So now in this post, after I did put a condition and asked the shuyukh, these are the things he has to do in order for me to just stop, because I will not stop if these things are not being corrected. So he did put this post on his X account, which obviously is not what I was asking for. I was asking for him to come out on a video, apologize about his action and the destruction that he caused, and admit his mistakes, and also make the corrections on video and put down all the other videos that are misleading the youth. So this attempt is just to shut me down, just to ask me to stop. But this is not what I was asking for. So basically, I didn't.
Interesting. So this wasn't some random post, or wasn't even simply him trying to defend himself, because anyone who watched the clips thought he was talking about himself, and then starts making fun of him. And so this isn't even just him trying to defend himself against criticism. You're saying that this was him trying to keep you quiet by, okay, she wants me to do this and then she'll keep quiet, so let me go ahead and do this. And you're saying, no, this wasn't enough. This wasn't what I asked for.
Yes.
All right, so Hijab says, on so-called secret marriages, the term secret marriage is frequently misapplied. What was discussed in the aforementioned episode was not a marriage conducted in legal secrecy, but one in which the first wife was not notified or consulted. According to the overwhelming majority of jurists across the 4 Sunni schools, such notification is not a legal condition for the validity of a subsequent nikah. This view reflects a long-established interpretive norm within fiqh and should not be read as a marginal or isolated opinion. Islamic jurisprudence, however, does not function exclusively through abstract validation. The classical legal tradition distinguishes between the theoretical derivation of a ruling and its applied manifestation in context. The latter is not an ethical addendum, but an intrinsic part of legal assessment. A practice that meets technical conditions may still be impermissible in application if it leads to disproportionate harm or undermines the objectives of the Sharia. So sounds like he's saying, hey, just because you can defend something doesn't necessarily mean it's the correct course of action, because there are other considerations like harm and so on.
Yeah, he's kind of. Yeah, so I think what Hijab is saying is that you can't just go by the technicalities. You have to consider the whole situation. You can't just find loopholes, so to speak. You have to consider what the consequences of your actions are. So I guess my question to him would be then, didn't your actions lead to disproportionate harm? So are you saying that you did something wrong? Because if you are, then just come out and admit that. And if you're not saying that, then I don't really understand what your argument is exactly. Because all of your argument was, this is technically allowed on the bitter truth, right? On the bitter truth, you're like, this is technically allowed. You even use terms like, oh, you can give black lies to your wives. So I'm not really sure how this is anyway a quote unquote clarification. If you're now admitting you're wrong, just say you're wrong.
It's just weird, because everything I hear from Hijab when he's talking about rulings on various issues, everything he says is, it sounds like he just looks for technicalities and what he can get away with. So for him to be saying, hey, that's not the only factor, you have to be considering the consequences or the harm that you're causing. Yes, Thaddeus is pointing out, think about the harm that he caused here. Is it disproportionate to, whatever he's using it to justify? But also, like, even afterwards, like Hijab, you trying to cover things up and you lying to cover these things up. Look at the damage you're doing. You're destroying not just the situation you're in, but you're ruining things for all these other guys who are being exposed now, and in various ways. One, this whole situation led to Ali Dawa being exposed for whatever he was doing with his secret extra wife. But then you've got all these guys in the Dawa community working together, conspiring to discredit Aisha. Like, all of this is just the result of you trying to cover up what you did. And I mean, I just think about that. If you really believe that you need to pay attention to the consequences of your actions, you might want to check out the consequences of your actions. But let's see here. He says, accordingly, while such marriages may fulfill the legal the criteria of legal form, they may also cause severe social, emotional, and familial damage. It is on this basis, not despite the law, but through it, that many scholars would deem them impermissible in practice. Exceptional cases may arise in which discretion or concealment becomes a protective necessity, such as in situations involving credible threats or legal entrapment, but these remain marginal and must not be extrapolated into general rulings.
I
Again,
think
my
this is
question to you,
he's still wrong
Good.
about this point. He's saying that there are some cases where this is going to be allowed. It's okay. If you can just please go back with the slide, trying to go over what he just said in the last paragraph, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he said exceptional cases may arise in which discretion and concealment becomes a protective necessity. This is he's speaking about his own life, like his own situation, his own personal situation. This is not okay based on absolutely no cases in any cases, no, never, this type of secrecy and this type of discretion and this type of craziness and disgusting actions could possibly be allowed. They shouldn't. Like he's talking about concealment to the point where the other woman would be treated like a halal prostitute just for the concealment, right? Is like let's conceal. For the concealment, no kids. For the concealment, no home. For the concealment, no in-laws. For the concealment, shut up. For the concealment, wear masks. For the concealment, we go in separate, we come out separate. Are you crazy? Are you
Mm-hmm.
sick? What? He said in some circumstances to avoid legal entrapment. Excuse me, if you've got issues in your life, legal entrapment, and I'm talking in general, I'm talking addressing men in general. If you got issues in your life, fix them. Don't go practice like deception to other women and destroy their. They matter. They are human beings. They've got a soul that you have destroyed. You've got a life that you have destroyed, right? So do not practice these things. There is no exceptions. It says like discretion and concealment and whatnot. Like if there are women who do agree to these things and they consent to these things, I think that's a whole different topic that we're not talking about here. If she's is a grown adult and she gave permission to whatever kind of craziness, that's her, right? But here, if you're going to involve the deception and the lies and manipulation and the tactics and all these things, and then include these kind of practices later on, this is crazy. And for women who do accept these kinds of things, I personally do not think it's halal. It's impermissible. Marriage was meant to be the making of a family, a home, companionship, right? For the rest of the life of the two. Like in Islam, we've got polygamy. That is something that we're not discussing here. I know you guys that you don't understand that, you don't accept it probably. But like in the concept of polygamy, even in polygamy, there has to be a home, care, like a human being who cares of his family, big family, right? In a home, children, everybody knows about everything. So this secrecy details, I had to make a last comment about it because some people were commenting and saying you didn't want to let his wife know. In Islam, I wasn't doing something wrong or bad in order for me to go and let her know. Even his previous second wife, she did let her know when things went wrong between her and him, when the relationship probably broke up or whatever the situation was. And then she was like, okay, this is what I'm going to go and do. Like, if there is a polygamous marriage and the man says, please, it's going to be up to me to inform my other wife, that is none of the business of the other wife, the other women in his household. So like we understand, because like in order for me to go and say, oh okay, I have to go and disclose this information to his other wife, this is as if I am inside thinking that what's this, the making of this family is wrong, you know. like it's disgusting, is wrong, whatever, where it's not, right? So when a husband tell his second wife that it's going to be up to me to inform my first wife, I don't understand why I'm being criticized about that. So he said, do not let her know. The other second wife did let her know everything broke down. Please leave that to me. That's all what it is. So I think this detail should have been included in this section, because this is a clarification that so many people needed to hear.
And so we have on marriages with the intention of divorce. A similar juridical structure applies to the case of marriages contracted with a concealed intention to divorce. This practice is distinct from mut'ah, where both parties explicitly stipulate a time limit. Here, only one party privately intends to end the marriage after fulfilling a specific goal. The vast majority of Sunni jurists, including al-Shafi'i, Ibn Qudama, and Ibn Taymiyyah, held that such an intention does not affect the formal validity of the marriage, provided its contractual elements are met. However, jurists such as al-Awza'i viewed this act as impermissible, associating it with deception and likening it, in effect, to mut'ah. Yes, so I would agree with the latter there. Does sound like deception and similar to mut'ah. The significance of the tassel-tenzil distinction again becomes evident even when a contract is valid in form. Its permissibility in application may shift based on the presence of deception, breach of trust, or social harm. In such cases, the internal intention, though technically irrelevant to the validity of the contract, may contribute to its impermissibility in practice. The legal tradition provides a mechanism for evaluating not only actions, but also their consequences and surrounding conditions. Some jurists observed that women, under certain legal formulations, may seek divorce for reasons of personal dissatisfaction. However, such observations do not justify intentional concealment by either spouse. They merely reflect the tradition's recognition that internal motivations exist and must be legally interpreted when they become operative in social reality.
So it seems to be the same thing here. He's saying that, technically speaking, if you go by the letter of the law, you're allowed to marry with intention of divorce. But if you consider all of the circumstances and you consider what this will actually do to women and what this will actually do to the families involved and everything, then in practice, it generally will become impermissible. But again, when he's going on the bitter truth, right, he's basically just saying, nope, this is allowed. Did you guys know that this is allowed? So he is coming out and, in a sense, correcting his previous teachings, although he's pretending that he's just clarifying things. He's not actually admitting that he was intentionally teaching things that are wrong.
On the question of mut'ah, in subsequent critiques, it has been claimed that certain Sunni practices, such as misyar or marriage with the intent to divorce, are functionally indistinguishable from mut'ah, and that the Sunni critique of mut'ah is thereby undermined. This comparison may have some merit when analyzing consequences alone, particularly in cases where such practices are abused. However, this perspective neglects the legal distinction in structure, intent, and textual basis. According to the overwhelming majority of Sunni jurists, mut'ah was explicitly abrogated. Its prohibition is not derived from a consequentialist framework, but from scriptural evidence and juristic methodology. Its legal impermissibility rests on the fact of its abrogation, not solely on its outcomes. That said, the tradition also acknowledges that any form, mut'ah or otherwise, that leads to systematic harm may, through the principle of mafsada, be reassessed at the level of application. The central disagreements between Sunni and Shia traditions lie elsewhere. The divergence concerns core theological principles such as the infallibility of the imams, the nature of religious authority, and the integrity of the Quranic text. While mut'ah remains a significant point of legal divergence, it does not constitute the doctrinal foundation of that divergence. So his conclusion here, Islamic jurisprudence cannot be reduced to a binary of legality and morality. It is a tradition that integrates abstract legal reasoning with contextual application. The tassel of a ruling may yield a particular outcome in theory, but its tanzil, shaped by circumstances, consequences, and ethical concerns, may revise or restrict that ruling in practice. This is not an innovation, but a foundational feature of the legal method. My remarks in bitter truth were an attempt to present this structure briefly and in good faith. They were not endorsements of any specific practice, nor were they personal claims. Wants to stress that these were not personal claims. If those comments were misunderstood, then the fault lies not in the tradition, but in the failure to appreciate its depth and complexity. The aim here is simply to reaffirm the interpretive integrity of that tradition and the necessity of distinguishing between abstract rulings and their applied form.
Yeah, I'm calling cap on this being presented in good faith on Bitter Truth. Every word he's saying is about technicalities on that program. He seemed to be arguing the exact opposite, that if we can find technical reasons why we can do something, then it's permissible for us to do it. I'm glad that he now has adopted the position that Aisha and many other Muslims have, that the law is not just about the letter of the law, but it's about the spirit and intent as well. But that's not what he was arguing on that program. He's being very disingenuous when he's saying that is the case. Basically, he got called out, and now he says, okay, this is very important. That's why I'm not going to make a video about it. That's why I'm not going to put it on my YouTube channel. I'm just going to make a very long tweet. And based on the nature of Twitter, people are almost certainly not going to read it for the most part.
This was basically like word salad.
why-
So many words for saying like, I did something and I'm doing damage control now. I'm making a poor attempt at damage control.
Yeah, and this is why that post doesn't serve the purpose. That was not the purpose. The purpose was to retract the damage, the great damage that you have, and destruction that you have created in the land, basically. And therefore, it should have been broadcasted, and all the false other teachings should have been retracted and pulled off the internet. And you should have come out with an apology to the women who have been abused based on those teachings.